Have you ever noticed that you are at your most convincing with strangers? Someone you met 3 days ago sends you a message, and you sit there smiling at the screen for 10 minutes. You draft your reply, delete it, draft again. Every word carrying your sharpest wit, your most effortless warmth, your most perfectly calibrated vulnerability. You talk about childhood, you talk about the things you never told anyone. You feel, for the first time in a long time, that someone actually sees you, that someone has finally found the room in your soul that no one else bothered to enter, and it feels real. In that moment you are generous, you are brave, you are the version of yourself you not authentic, just frictionless. But here is the pattern you keep not seeing. That feeling has an expiration date, and it almost always dies at the same point, the moment the distance begins to close. Maybe it is the night you make it official, maybe it is the morning they leave a toothbrush at your place. Maybe it is nothing more than the third time they ask, "How was your day?" And you feel something tighten in your chest. The replies get shorter, the voice gets flatter, the excuses get more creative. You tell yourself the spark is gone, you tell yourself they changed, and then, on some restless midnight, you scroll past a stranger's profile, a new face, a new voice, a new set of unknowns, and something in you lights up again. You call this not having met the right person. But if the feeling always disappears at the same threshold, the problem was never the person. It was what happens when someone stops being a stranger. There is an old term in analytical psychology, participation, mystique, that describes a state of psychological fusion so total you can tell where you end and the other person begins. No boundary, no separation, just a warm, undifferentiated fog in which everything the other person does feels like fate, and everything you feel seems to belong to both of you at once. This is what strangers give you. Not connection, but the illusion of connection held in place by the fact that you know almost nothing about each other. They are blurry enough for you to pour every longing, every ideal, every "this is how I want to be loved" into the space between you, and nothing in them is sharp enough yet to push back and say, "Number, I am not that." And it works, because you are both doing it. In a stranger dynamic, what you are witnessing is not intimacy, it is two personas, curated, polished, impeccable, performing for each other. Your most charming self meeting their most charming self. Two masks dancing beautifully in a room where no one has to take anything off. The dance is exquisite, but it only survives under one condition. Neither of you removes the mask, and intimacy, real intimacy, is defined by exactly that removal. You thought you found resonance. What you found was a mirror that hadn't cracked yet. The light was yours. You don't only love strangers. You only dare to love where you can be seen through. If Act I is about what you are performing, this is about what you are starving for, because there is a reason you keep falling for silhouettes, and it has nothing to do with romance, and everything to do with a part of your psyche that has been unfed for a very long time. A stranger gives your soul what reality never does, a blank screen, and something inside you, starving, desperate, ancient, rushes to fill it. Jung called it the anima, the soul image you keep looking for outside yourself. It carries every quality you've repressed, idealized, or been forbidden to express. And when it finds a surface empty enough to receive it, a stranger as face, a stranger as silence, a stranger's silence, a stranger's half-written message, it doesn't hesitate. It projects, it fills that person with light that was never theirs. And here is where it gets precise. The anima doesn't stay the same forever. She develops. In stages, the first is Eve, the biological, the instinctual. The second is Helen, named for Helen of Troy, the aestheticized, eroticized ideal, a figure who shines, who intoxicates, who is always just out of full reach. The third is Mary, the spiritual companion who requires you to see past surface beauty, and the fourth is Sophia, wisdom, integration. The soul made whole. Most people who only love strangers are locked at Helen. Not because they re-shallow, because Helen doesn't ask you to see clearly. She asks you to worship, and worship is so much easier than witness. You keep chasing the figure that glows, luminous, intoxicating, always slightly blurred at the edges, because the next stage demands something you haven't yet learned to give. Mary requires you to face the parts of another person that don't glow. Sophia requires you to sit with your own incompleteness and stop expecting someone else to fill it. But Helen Helen is always a stranger. There is a neurological echo here too, the unpredictability of a stranger. As attention, a message that might come or might not, a glance that might mean everything or nothing, triggers the same reward circuitry that makes gambling addictive. Your dopamine system does respond strongest to reward. It responds strongest to the possibility of reward. Your dopamine does worship love. It worships uncertainty. So that surge you feel when a stranger texts back after a long silence isn't a soul recognizing another soul. It is a slot machine paying out just enough to keep you pulling the lever. You didn't fall in love with a person. You fell in love with a hunger and mistook the ache for connection. Helen, no matter how many faces she wears, will never walk you past the door she is standing in front of. Now let's talk about what happens when someone actually stays. The relationship is going well, better than well. It feels different this time. You've been open, you've been present, you've let someone closer than you usually allow, and for a while, that closeness feels like something you could almost trust. Then one evening, they say something small. Maybe it is, I was thinking about us moving in together. Maybe it is, I need to talk to you about something. Maybe it is just the word we, used with a certainty that implies a future you didn't agree to, and something in your body responds before your mind can catch up. Your chest tightens, your jaw locks, you reach for your phone without knowing why. The room feels smaller, you don't feel angry, you feel nothing. A flat, airless nothing, and within hours your mind begins constructing its case. They not really what I want. Something is off. I think I've lost the feeling. You haven't lost the feeling. Your nervous system has classified intimacy as a threat. Your autonomic system has modes, open, mobilized, and shut down. In a stranger dynamic, the stakes are low enough that your system stays in the open zone, warm, playful, generous. Nothing is truly at risk, but when someone moves from stranger to close, when they begin to know your patterns, depend on your presence, see through your performance, your nervous system can register that closeness not as love. Not because this person is dangerous, but because, at some point in your history, closeness was. This is where it cuts deep. Many people who can only love at a distance carry an early imprint, often preverbal, often invisible, of a caregiver whose love came with no room for boundaries. A mother whose affection was indistinguishable from control. A father whose emotional needs consumed the space where yours should have been. In those environments, being close to someone meant disappearing into them. Your edges dissolved. Your needs became invisible. Love and erasure wore the same face. Your body remembers this, and it remembers faster than language ever could. So when a real relationship reaches the point where someone truly depends on you, where your presence matters, your system does read love. It reads dissolution, and it does what it was trained to do: shut down, pull back, go numb, become unreachable. Then comes the narrative. The mind searches not for truth, but for an exit. I am not feeling it anymore. We want different things. I think I need to be alone. These sound like insights, they are evacuation plans. That flatness you feel isn't the absence of love. It is the presence of too much, more than your system was ever trained to hold. So it powers down. It numbs you. It gives you the anesthetic of boredom so you don't have to feel the terror underneath, and the cost of that protection is this: you only ever get to have beginnings. You don't only love strangers. You only dare to love where no one can lean on you. By now you understand the machinery, the fog, the hunger, the body's silent retreat. But none of that answers the deepest question, not why do you love strangers, but what exactly are you running from when someone stops being one, in the alchemical tradition, which Jung used as a psychological map. The process of turning base metal into gold requires a stage most people never talk about. It is called the nigrido, the blackening, the putrefaction, the phase where everything beautiful on the surface must decompose before anything real can form. This is not failure. This is where the work begins, and you know exactly what it looks like. Even if you've never called it by name, it is the first real fight, not the kind you recover from in 20 minutes, but the one that leaves a silence so heavy you can hear each other breathing in separate rooms. It is hearing them sigh in the bathroom at 2 a.m. and knowing, for the first time, that you are the reason. It is waking up next to someone and feeling not passion, not comfort, but the raw, unfiltered weight of another person. As full existence, their pettiness, their fear, their ordinary, human smell, their ordinary, human weight. The way they load the dishwasher wrong and 1T admit it. The way they need you in a tone that makes your skin crawl. And in that moment, a sentence appears in your mind, clean, familiar, almost relieving. This isn't it. That sentence is not clarity, it is a fire alarm. Because what you are smelling isn't the death of love, it is the negredo, the fantasy is decomposing. The masks are falling off, and for the first time, you are standing in front of someone who is not a stranger anymore, which means they are no longer a screen for your projections. They are just a person, flawed, heavy, real. Before this point, what you had was conjunction, the alchemical fusion, the blissful merging, the feeling of we are one. But oneness isn't intimacy, it is the absence of boundaries. You didn't see each other, you absorbed each other real love. The kind that survives, the kind that transforms, can only emerge after the negredo, after the fantasy rots, after you see each other clearly and choose to remain. And this is precisely what you refuse. Every time you leave at the point where the glow fades, you are not protecting yourself. You are fleeing the negredo. You are standing at the only door that leads to gold, and turning around because the hallway smells like death. You keep restarting, new stranger, new fog, new projection, new conjunction, and every time you mistake the departure point for the destination. Here is the hardest sentence in this entire script. You stop every relationship at its most beautiful moment, but that moment is precisely the last moment before it becomes true. So where do you go from here? Not backward into another stranger, another fog, another exquisite first act, and not into some sanitized idea of healthy love, where everything is stable and warm and nothing hurts. That is just another projection with better branding. You go through. The alchemists understood that negredo is not the end. After the blackening comes the albedo clarification, then the rubedo, the emergence of real gold. But you cannot skip the rot. There is no shortcut past decomposition. The only way to gold is through the death of everything you thought love was supposed to look like. In Jungian terms, this is the journey from Helen to Sophia, from the luminous stranger you worship through Mary, the companion who asks you to see past the glow, and into Sophia, who demands nothing less than that you become whole, not complete through someone else, whole in yourself, and then, from that wholeness, capable of meeting another whole person without needing to consume them or flee from them. This doesn't happen in a revelation. It happens in practice, small, unglamorous, uncomfortable practice, when you feel the urge to disappear, stay one more round, not forever, not through gritted teeth, just one reply more than your instinct tells you to send. One evening longer than your body says you can bear. Your window of tolerance doesn't need to double, it needs to widen by a millimeter. Then another, then another. When you start writing someone into a poem, interrupt yourself with a question, not, are they my soulmate? But, what are they like when they read disappointed? How do they handle conflict? What do they do when no one is watching? Let the Helen image flicker, let the human come through. You might find that what is behind the glow is not a disappointment, just a person. And people, unlike projections, can actually hold you when a relationship stops glowing. Don't treat it as a death sentence. That flatness might not be the end. It might be negredo knocking. And the question is not whether you can keep the spark alive. The question is whether you can sit in the dark long enough to find out what else is there. You don't only love strangers. You just haven't learned yet that after being truly seen, you don't have to run. It is waiting in the moment you always fled from.